Hi.
I was the guy who built their golden goose. Spent years of my life coding, debugging, and turning caffeine into million-dollar ideas. And just like that, they tossed me out like yesterday's trash. That Monday started like every other. Alarm blaring, a quick shower, and a stop at Starbucks for my usual. Traffic sucked, but it always did. Nothing screamed, "This is the worst day of your life." Yet, got to my desk. Barely had time to sip my overpriced coffee when my inbox lit up. Meeting request. Logan, the CO. No subject line, no context. Just a cold ASAP. I walked into his office, and there he was, Logan, lounging like a king in his stupid leather chair. Beside him, Thomas Blake, company lawyer and professional buzzkill. My gut twisted. This wasn't a performance review. Logan didn't even fake small talk. He slid a stack of papers my way, barely looking up. Effective immediately. Your services are no longer required. Boom. Just like that. I blinked. What? Thomas leaned in like he was explaining traffic laws to a toddler. Per your contract, all intellectual property created under this company belongs to us. Effective today, you're no longer an employee. We appreciate your contributions. Appreciate? Like hell they did. They stripped me of everything I built, like it was some used car trade-in. I could have fought it, raised hell, but I knew how this worked. Lawyers, contracts, fine print. The deck was stacked. I gritted my teeth, grabbed the pen, and signed away years of my life in 2 seconds flat. The walk back to my desk felt like a funeral march. Nobody met my eyes. Some looked guilty. Others pretended I didn't exist. Cowards. Except for Natalie. Phone buzzed. A message from her. I just heard. This is bullshit. You need anything? I got you. More hard in that one text than anything Logan had spewed. I packed up fast. Stapler I never used, half-dead plant, and the dumb holiday party photo where I still thought this company cared. At the elevator, I turned back one last time. Logan stood by his office, smirking like he just won the lottery. That's when it hit me. He thought I was done, that I'd just roll over. But nah, this wasn't over. Not even close. He had no idea what was coming. I walked out of that office with nothing but a box of my stuff and a smirk Logan didn't see coming. He thought he'd won. Thought I'd just disappear while he cashed in on my work. Clown. By the time I got home, I had a plan. This wasn't some half-baked revenge fantasy. I'd been ready for this. The moment I saw Logan for what he was, I built a failsafe into the software. A hidden kill switch. 30 days after the last update, the system would shut down unless a developer key was entered. Only one person had that key. Me. I cracked open a beer, kicked my feet up, and watched the circus unfold. Within 48 hours, Logan had turned into the biggest hype man in the industry. Headlines were popping up everywhere. Revolutionary tech set to disrupt the market. Investors were throwing money at the company, like it was the next Apple. Natalie kept me in the loop. She wasn't a fan of corporate backstabbing either, and she knew I'd poured my soul into that software. She sent me updates, screenshots of Logan parading around, soaking up praise like he was some kind of genius. I let him have his moment. Didn't interfere, didn't make a scene, just sat back and waited. Then, 2 weeks in, something golden happened. Someone leaked an investor meeting. Logan was on camera, smiling that snake oil salesman grin, promising that the software was 100% stable, market-ready, and risk-free. I nearly choked on my drink. He had no idea. 2 more weeks. That's all it would take. Then, the illusion of control he thought he would shatter into a million pieces. I grabbed another beer, leaned back in my chair, and grinned. Watching a man dig his own grave had never been this satisfying. 2 weeks after my exit, Logan was riding high. The company had just landed its first major contracts. The press was eating up every word, and clients were raving about the software's capabilities. He was untouchable, or at least, that's what he thought. Natalie kept me updated, She told me how Logan strutted around the office like he owned the world, tossing out tech jargon he barely understood to impress investors. He acted like the mastermind behind it all, selling them on the idea that this software would make the company a dominant force in the market. I wasn't mad. Not anymore. I was entertained, because I knew something he didn't. His empire was built on a foundation of sand. The thing about software is, it's only as good as the people maintaining it. And there was one tiny problem. No one at that company understood my code like I did. Sure, they could patch small bugs, slap a fresh coat of paint on it, but when something serious broke, they'd be screwed. And that moment was coming. Fast. Investors were throwing money at them, expecting perfection. They weren't paying for a product. They were paying for reliability. And reliability depended on people who actually knew how the damn thing worked. Then, the first crack started to show. Natalie told me about a late-night panic at the office. The software had a small, unexplainable hiccup during a client demo. Logan brushed it off, claiming it was a minor bug that would be fixed overnight. Except it wasn't fixed overnight. And the next day, another issue popped up. Then another. The dev team scrambled. They dug through the code, trying to make sense of something they never built. They patched one hole, only for 3 more to appear. Logan kept his cool in public, but behind closed doors, the pressure was mounting. I watched from the sidelines, sipping my beer, waiting for the inevitable. This wasn't just a few glitches. The real problem was about to hit. The moment they realized they had no control over their own software was the moment Logan's little fantasy would come crashing down. And I couldn't wait to see it happen. 1 week left. The software was running flawlessly. Clients were onboarding without issues. Contracts were rolling in, and Logan was riding high. He was everywhere. Press interviews, board meetings, even some tech conference where he pretended to be a visionary. Investors were eating it up. The company was already in talks for massive new deals, promising that their cutting-edge software would redefine the industry. Natalie kept me in the loop. She had a front-row seat to Logan's ego trip, watching as he took credit for my work, while the dev team scrambled behind the scenes to keep things from breaking. The big presentation was set for Friday. Every major investor, every big name in tech was going to be there. This was Logan's moment to shine. Except it wouldn't be. I had made sure of that. That morning, I sat at my desk, cracked open a fresh coffee, and pulled up my monitoring tools. Everything was still in place. The kill switch was primed and counting down. Every license was tethered to my original backend. Every line of code still connected to my failsafe. They had no idea they were sitting on a ticking time bomb. The thing about Logan, he never asked how things worked, never dug into the details. He assumed that throwing enough money at a problem would make it disappear. But software doesn't work that way. It needs care, maintenance, someone who actually understands the guts of it. They had no one like that anymore. I leaned back, checking the reports. The system log showed a flawless track record. Clients were increasing usage, testing integrations, and relying more and more on the software. Logan thought this meant success. What it really meant was that when everything shut down, it would take half the industry down with it. I could picture it now. Logan standing in front of a room full of investors, hyping up the software, promising them the future. And then, right on cue, chaos. I let the moment settle in my mind, then closed my laptop with a smirk. They thought they had control. They thought I was just another bitter ex-employee, watching from the sidelines, powerless. They were wrong. By the time they realized what was happening, it would be too late. And that moment was coming fast. The morning of the big presentation arrived, and Logan was ready to put on a show. Natalie had given me the details. He walked into the conference room with that same arrogant strut, acting like he owned the world. The massive screen behind him flashed sleek graphs, sky-high projections, and just enough buzzwords to keep the investors hooked. He was selling the future of data analytics, and they were buying it. Then, right on cue, the first error popped up. A red notification blinked onto the screen. Natalie texted me, "Glitch. He's ignoring it." Logan barely acknowledged it, waving it off like it was nothing. He cracked a joke, kept up the act. But then another alert appeared. And another. The software wasn't just lagging. It was flatlining. A murmur spread through the room. Investors shifted in their seats, eyes narrowing as Logan clicked furiously at the remote. No response. Natalie messaged again. Live clients reporting issues. Systems freezing. Then the words that changed everything. "It's not working." One by one, clients started reporting failures. Transactions weren't processing. Data was vanishing. The software, the so-called revolutionary tool Logan had hyped up, had just face-planted in the middle of its grand debut. Logan's smile disappeared. He cleared his throat, tried to stall, but the tension in the room had already shifted. Then came the moment that sealed his fate. The biggest investor in the room, the one ready to drop millions, stood up. No words, no second chances. Just a sharp glance, a snap of his briefcase, and an exit that felt like a death sentence. Others followed, some shaking their heads, some whispering as they walked out. Natalie had a front-row seat to the disaster. She messaged me in real time, giving me play-by-play updates. Investors are furious. They're walking out. He looks like he's about to pass out. Then came the best part, a short video attachment. I opened it and watched as Logan stood there, frozen, his empire crumbling around him while he desperately tried to salvage the situation. I hit replay. Then again. Logan had spent months building himself up as the next tech messiah. And now, he was just another overconfident idiot watching his kingdom burn. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of the disastrous presentation, the media pounced. Tech blogs, business sites, even mainstream news outlets had a field day. Logan's tech empire collapses. Billion-dollar software turns to dust. Investors abandon ship. The headlines weren't subtle. Natalie sent me links. They weren't just bad, they were brutal. Words like fraud, incompetence, and catastrophe were being thrown around. And it wasn't just the press. Clients were furious. Companies that had signed multi-million-dollar contracts were demanding refunds. Lawyers were getting involved. It was a full-scale meltdown. Then came the stock drop, a nosedive. Logan's name was getting dragged through the mud on finance shows. Investors weren't just backing out. They were cutting their losses and running. Natalie forwarded me an internal email, emergency board meeting, first thing in the morning. Logan was in full-on damage control mode, trying to find someone to blame. His first target? The IT department. Classic. He tried pinning the failure on them, saying they had mismanaged the rollout. But that excuse didn't hold for a second. The engineers knew the truth. The board knew the truth. The software had worked until I was gone. There was no covering up the fact that Logan had sold a product he didn't even understand. Natalie called me late that night. They gave him 3 days to fix it, she said. If he doesn't, they'll kick him out. 3 days? That was generous. Too generous. Logan wasn't fixing anything. He didn't even know what had gone wrong. He'd spent his whole career pretending to be the smartest guy in the room. But now, when it actually mattered, he was just another exec drowning in his own lies. No PR spin was going to save him this time. A day later, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in a while. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. Logan. His voice was tense, stripped of that usual cocky arrogance. He didn't waste time with small talk. He needed me back. Not as an employee, of course. That ship had sailed. He was offering me a consulting contract, a temporary gig to help stabilize the system. I almost laughed. The same guy who had tossed me aside without a second thought was now desperate enough to ask for my help. I let him talk. He tried every angle. Money, prestige, even some nonsense about unfinished business. He made it sound like I owed him, like we were partners who had simply hit a rough patch, like he hadn't screwed me over, taken my work, and build his name off of it. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I had nothing to prove, and certainly nothing to gain from bailing him out. Logan thinks he can fix this. Natalie texted while I was still on the call. The board is breathing down his neck. He's running out of options. I already knew that. The company was in freefall, and Logan was grasping at straws. He didn't understand the real problem. Even if I swooped in and saved the day, it wouldn't change anything. His empire was built on stolen work, empty promises, and blind luck. And now, all of that was crumbling. Come on, man. You don't want to walk away from this. We can still turn it around, he said, his voice tighter, more desperate now. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. That was Rich. I didn't drag it out. I told him no. The shift in his tone was instant. Pleading turned into frustration. Frustration turned into anger. He warned me that I was making a mistake, that I was turning down a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that I'd regret it. I just hung up. A few minutes later, Natalie sent another text. He's panicking. This was his last card. The board meets tomorrow. I put my phone down and stretched. Logan had always thought he was untouchable, the smartest guy in the room. Now, for the first time, he was realizing he wasn't, and I wasn't about to save him. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat back, and enjoyed the silence. It was over. He just didn't know it yet. A few weeks later, it was official. The company admitted defeat. Logan was gone, scrubbed from their website, his name whispered like some cautionary tale. The board had no choice but to face reality. The software was mine, and they knew it. I got the offer in my inbox late one night. Licensing. They wanted to pay me for the rights to use my own creation. The irony wasn't lost on me. A few months ago, they tossed me out like I was nothing. Now, they were asking for permission to keep their sinking ship afloat. I didn't rush to respond. Let them sweat. For the first time, they were the ones waiting on me. When I finally replied, I negotiated the hell out of that contract. Every clause, every term, every loophole airtight. If they wanted my software, they were going to pay for it. By the time we finalized the deal, I wasn't just comfortable. I was financially set for life. And I wasn't about to waste the opportunity. I took the money and built something of my own. No corporate politics, no clueless execs who couldn't tell Java from JavaScript, no meetings where people pretended to know what they were talking about. Just real, talented developers who gave a damn. I handpicked my team, made sure they got paid what they were worth, and set out to do things the right way. Meanwhile, Logan, he vanished. No big redemption arc, no miraculous comeback. The guy who once acted like he was untouchable had been erased. Last I heard, he tried launching some consulting firm, but nobody was buying what he was selling. Turns out, when you burn every bridge on your way up, there's no one left to catch you on the way down. Natalie kept me updated. She sent me an article a few weeks later. The company was still struggling, barely holding on. Investors were pulling out. Clients were still leaving. Their big idea had crumbled without the one person who actually understood how to make it work. I should have felt bad. Maybe a few years ago, I would have, but not anymore. One night, as I wrapped up work on a new project, I sat back, sipping a whiskey. My own company, my own rules, my own future. No board meetings, no egos, just real work that mattered. Some people never learn from their mistakes, but I did, and I was just getting started.
Bye bye.